We're up for our next session, Dream a Billion Dream and How to Make It Happen, by BVR Mohan Reddy, author of Engineered in India, From Dreams to Billion Dollar, with Mukesh Sud, Associate Professor, Strategy Area, IIM Ahmedabad, author of Leapfrog, 6 Practices to Thrive at Work. In fact, this particular book in the context of thriving at work is a scenario when a new entrant outperforms others. And how do they achieve this? Are high performers born or made? This is exactly the book which is poised to help you to advance your career at an incredible pace. So up first, let's put our hands together. Give a big round of applause to our moderator, Mukesh Sud. Yes, please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to hand it over to you. Oh, you have a mic. You have a mic, yeah. You can call upon this.
Yeah. A late good morning to all of you. It's my pleasure today to have Mohan as my interviewee. Mohan, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
You can do better at the applause, please. Thank you. So I have heard and read about Mohan earlier, but today was the first occasion when I got to meet him. We spent a little time before coming on stage. And I think I've not met a more self-effacing, humble person than Mohan.
Thank you.
Now, I have had a dream to interview 2 people. One is a Nobel Prize winner, and the other is a billionaire. So I can check the second box off, and if Mohan wins a Nobel Prize, both boxes are checked.
No. I'm not sure about that part of it. I'm fairly close to being what I did.
So Mohan has had a very interesting career, starting off in a typical middle-class family like many of us, getting into IIT Kanpur, working then with the Shriram Group in Delhi, and then moving on to MICO, HCL, and OMC, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's briefly his career profile in terms of the work he has done. But a little bit about yourself, if you could just help our audience.
Well, thank you, Mukesh, for starting this conversation. I also, at the outset, like to thank the Bangalore Business Literature Festival organizers for inviting me today. Very simply putting about myself, I'm a first-generation entrepreneur. I come from a very middle-class background, and I'm very proud about it. And I started a company 30 years back. I had this passion of becoming an entrepreneur much earlier than that. I waited for about 18 years, working for others, doing what I keep calling it as the entrepreneurial stint. You behave like an entrepreneur, though you don't own that enterprise. So I did that stint for 18 years, got the right opportunity, started a company in 1992, built it brick by brick, and it's an amazing story. We now have 18,000 highly paid professionals who work with us in 22 countries across the world. Maybe it's a data point I need to share with you, is that I started this company with an equity of 20 lakhs of my money. That's where I started in 1992. We did 3 rounds of funding thereafter, just 3 rounds of funding, not more than that. And the sum total of those 3 rounds of funding was about 300 crores. But the company is today valued at about 25,000 crores. That's what we built value for our shareholders over a period of last 30 years. Not even 30 years. We took the company public only in 1997. It's about 25 years now. And more importantly, we believed in terms of having great customer relationships. So we have customers who are 25 years old with us. We have customers who are single accounts that are $100 million accounts with us. We can talk more about that. We have employees who have been, more than 300 of our employees are more than 30 years old in the company. So we took care of our employees. And equally important, what is very gratifying at the end, is that we also made sure we took care of the society. Much before the CSR rules came by, we made sure that we contributed a part of our profits to developing our neighborhood. So that way, it's a very gratifying story that I have, Mukesh. I can go on this way, but I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mohan. You know, a question I get asked, I teach entrepreneurship at IIM Ahmedabad, and a question I get asked all the time, Mohan, is should you start right after you graduate when your liabilities are limited, you are more prone to taking risks, or should you wait, build up the social connections, the professional connections, have a little bit of balance in the bank, and then do it? What is your take on that?
Good question, Mukesh. And this is a question that gets up in the list from the audience most of the time, but you started it off. But I keep saying there's nothing called a good time to start the business, good age to start the business. I'll rephrase that. There are the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world who have, or Steve Jobs, and many more who started very early in life. I've also seen extremely successful entrepreneurs who started after they retired from government service. There's a very famous gentleman called Mr. B.V.S. Raju, no, Bala Vishnu Raju, B.V. Raju.
He's the who's put up airports and infrastructure.
Cements.
Okay.
He retired from Cement Corporation of India, then started the company.
Yeah.
So extremely successful entrepreneur too. So there's nothing called an age at which you have to start your enterprise. But I think there's a time at which you can start the enterprise. When you're ready, you have that passion in your mind, you think you want to become an entrepreneur, that passion is driving you crazy. At that point of time, you can build the rest of the building blocks to start the enterprise. Take my own example. I waited for 18 years. As soon as I graduated, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I thought about it very seriously, and I felt I did have limitations. Limitation number one, I didn't have enough money with me because my forefathers were not businessmen. We were not rich landlords. The second one is I didn't have the technology. A third one is, if you look at when I graduated in 1973, India was a different country. It was all license Raj. For everything, you need to get license for it. And what was available at that point of time in 1970s is more of brick and mortar opportunities, which means that it required fairly large amount of capital expenditure. So I waited for my opportunity. I did not waste those 18 years. I developed all the skills that could be required to be the founder CEO of a company. I actually was 10 years before I became a founder of a company, a CEO of a company. So I had all the skills, be it marketing, whether it's go-to-market, or it's the finance, or it is HR. All the skills were developed. And then I put together a reasonable amount of money, which I said I can take risk with, and launch my company. So therefore, there's nothing called age at which you can launch your company, but there's a timing that becomes important.
So the quick answer is, it's your call. You have to take that call, and what call you take, you would know best.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes, Mukesh, you're right, absolutely.
Okay. So another thing that we keep talking about in our entrepreneurship classes is the classic F word. Now, before your minds go in the wrong direction, the F word is the failure word. Because we keep emphasizing that entrepreneurship is about learning from failure. So I read your book, it was very interesting, but can you talk a little bit about the failures you experienced and what you learned from them?
Yeah, several of them, all right. Let me start with the start point itself. When I started this company, the whole ambition at that point of time, which is still now, which we've achieved all right, was to start engineering as a service to the global marketplace. We felt that we were, but then, the customer was not right. Did we test our hypothesis? We did not. So the end result is it was the first stumbling block for us, to the roadblock. So therefore, what is the learning that we have is do a lot more of customer interface before you do that. For a little while thereafter, we wavered. And one of the failures that we had is we also invested money saying that the Y2K opportunity was so large. I said, yeah, engineering is my passion in life, but everybody is talking about Y2K. Why don't we go towards Y2K? Burnt ourselves. The lesson learned, your core competence is important. We are clueless about what that Y2K problem was. And as a result of that, we said, that's not the right place. So two things, core competence and focus, are two learnings that came out of this failure. So every failure, what you should look at is a learning exercise for you. I keep saying we celebrate failures. We celebrate learnings from failures. That's what we do. So failures are common, but one thing I like to alert every potential entrepreneur or an entrepreneur already there is saying that, look, failure, you should be prepared for failures too. You can't say, I will never fail, but take them in the right stride. Make sure you learn out of them. The only thing I keep further saying is don't make the same mistake. That's unpardonable thereafter.
Thank you. Now, being an academic, Mohan, I like having a framework to understand how entrepreneurs behave. And the conventional logic was that you see an opportunity, you assemble the resources, and you pursue it. The other is this theory of effectuation, where you start off by asking yourself, who am I? What do I know? Whom do I know? You have used that in your book.
Effectuation.
So can you talk a little bit, and this is a theory by Saraswati, a famed academic who's at Virginia. Can you talk a little bit about...
Yes. So the two ways, as you rightly said, Mukesh, the challenge we have is, if you went for the first one as a first-generation entrepreneur, it could be eternal journey with, in a mode saying that I'm still thinking about starting up. Whereas, if you look at the effectuation theory, it says, with the resources that I have, I start off and do best use of what is under my control. I may have challenges, I may have failures, but what I do with those failures is I make learning out of it. So therefore, I build from what experience, expertise, resources I have, rather than say, I wait for that big opportunity to come by, that may never come. So therefore, what we decided to do is go on this path of saying, start where you have resources. Even writing my book is the same thing. I didn't wait for saying that I need to get all the skills in writing before I wrote the book. I said, what I have with me, I'll write, and then see what happens thereafter.
So that's a good learning for young people, that you don't have to wait for the ideal time and the ideal opportunity. You start getting your fingers messed up, try something. And we talk about failures, and we say that 80% of companies fail. Well, that number is the number of companies that fail. I would argue that the number of entrepreneurs who fail is much, much lower. So failure is part of the territory
Absolutely.
in entrepreneurship. Another aspect I liked was about your quote about Malcolm Gladwell, where he attributes success to a number of factors. Can you elaborate on that?
Thank you, Mukesh. Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, talks about three things, and that appeals to me quite a bit and ingrained in my brain so much. The three things that he talks about for entrepreneurs to be successful is, one is the environment. And I'll relate it to my own story, is that I started this company in 1992 when the environment was right. India embarked on this strategy of liberalization, globalization. They wanted to get ease of doing business started improving. So therefore, environment becomes extremely important. The second one he talks about is the family support. You can't do anything all by yourself, all standing by yourself. And that's what I did too in my life. I made sure my family was comfortable. They provided me the right support before we could move forward in business. And the third one is your own passion in life. And that was one which is, it has to be, the fire in the belly cannot stop you from doing anything. So it's not 16 hours a day, it's not 18 hours a day. You go on till you say, I'm exhausted, I'm dying right now. You go to sleep, you wake up again with the same idea. So those are the three things that Malcolm Gladwell calls out. Passion in life, family support, ecosystem. So those three things are very important.
So I have a bunch of questions, but I've been shown the red card. So I need to now open the house for questions. And in case there are no questions, I have a few more. So if anybody who has a question, raise your hand. We'll give you a mic.
Hi, my name is Vishnu. I run a company called VoiceCube. It's a software services company. So, we've seen the West and how Silicon Valley has improved so much because of the angel investing culture. How do you review the entire investing scene in India currently, and what, according to you, needs to change? Probably the top two things to have such amount of catalyst? Is it I mean, a lot of people talk about investments as the entry point, but also we need to have more conversations about the exits, where there has to be a much more flourishing M&A culture and much more investors pushing companies to go for an IPO, which was the culture back in the 90s, but we see it a little going down right now. What are your thoughts on it?
Sure. I think the venture capital environment has changed like night to day from the days I started. I was one of the few companies which had venture capital borrowing. From then, there used to be just two firms in this country. One was called IDBI VCF, Venture Capital Fund, and the other one was called TDICICI, which is Technology Development Fund of ICICI. Only just two of them. People made fun of me when I got my term sheet from IDBI, saying that, Mohan, you seem to have read it wrong. It's not venture capital, it's vulture capital. That's what you signed off on. So there's an enormous amount of transformation that has happened. So what are the ones which are today very important? We still are fighting very intensely on what is called as angel tax. That is still not clear. There's registration to be done with DPIIT. DPIIT says we don't have resources. There are 900 companies backlogged at this point of time. So those are some of the things that people are getting concerned, saying that, look, will the taxation come back to them? That's one thing that's bothering. The second one is, I think the IPO activity will happen. IPOs will not happen purely on valuation. IPOs, in my view, will happen only on P&L strength. So slowly, as you see today, the startup environment, startup ecosystem maturing, and people showing the P&L, you'll see more amount of companies doing the IPOs.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vinay Dora. I'm an entrepreneur with Mixer and Crowd Product. My question for you is, does the location matter for building a brand and a company, a startup?
Not any longer, Mukesh. I think at one point of time, they used to think about, especially if you looked at even early 90s, people used to think there were elephant charmers in streets of India or snake charmers going all around. That's not true any longer. So therefore, and if you're saying not just the country, Mr. Reddy, you're looking at locations like whether it's Bangalore or Bombay or Hyderabad or Noida or whatever it is, I think there's a small, should I say, hesitation in the minds of some of the venture capitalists, but that's also disappearing. It doesn't matter. If you have a good proposition, money will automatically come to you. Your brand will be built. So I keep saying, what is brand all about? Brand to me is all about what people speak about you when you're not in the room. And when they speak good about you, when you do good work. So therefore, keep doing your good work and everything will fall in place thereafter.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, another red card. So 2 red cards is that we exit. Okay, a quick question there. Please keep it brief because 2 red cards and I'll be in trouble now.
Engineering as a service is a very tech-intensive and IP algorithms, platforms and all. How do you manage to have value addition to the customers while still being profitable? You need to invest on these technologies to be having those conversations, but at the same time, you have to value add to the customers. Now, how do you how have you managed to be in a leadership position for so long? Yeah.
Amazing is the transformation I see in this industry in the last 30 years. I've seen customers who came to India who said, I have a problem. I know how to solve the problem. I don't have people, so can you give me people for me? And I used to say, well, I don't have them right now. Then they would say, how long will it take to recruit you? From that situation, in the interest of time, 30 years fast forward, customers come to me and tell me that, Mr. Reddy, this is what my competition is doing. You think you can produce a product much better than competition? That's the transformation that happened. So we are making those investments upfront in a services companies like us. I have a chief technology officer. A chief technology officer who's calling out what are going to be the 6 major breakthroughs that will happen in the next 5 years. Investments are being made. But the good news that we have is we're equally well compensated by the customer. When the customer sees value in you, he is willing to pay for it. It's not that, and we have seen customers, actually, this is another good learning that I have, and I have to share with you. If you truly do good work, customers are very worried about your health. Customers ask us after a very strong negotiation, saying that, Mohan, tell us one thing, are you happy or not? And in one instance, when I said I was very unhappy, they recalled me for the meeting next morning to say, let's relook at the pricing back again. So what is the key to it? Key to it is your value creation. How much can you delight the customer? And we have a track record, 99% of the time, we've not lost a customer since we won them. That's how paranoid we are in terms of creating that stickiness with the customer. Thank you.
So we'll end with a small suggestion. Buy this book. It's a ton of anecdotes and stories, including one which I will just tell you very briefly. When Mohan was a young kid, he hid his report card from his mother because he had failed in a few subjects. So if you have not done so well in school, don't worry.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
This is a book you must buy.
I think I shared with you. It's also now the national bestseller.
And it is now the national bestseller.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll also like to take this opportunity to kind of soft release this book, Mukesh's. It's called Leapfrog: 6 Practices to Thrive at Work. Yeah. One book, got it? No. Yeah, one of this and one of that. Next shot. We'll have this first. Bigger round of applause, please. Yeah, and for this. Thank you.
I would like to request Mr. Mohan Reddy and Mr. Mukesh Sud to remain on stage. Thank you so much for this very engaging and rewarding session. We now have a small token of appreciation from our side.